So I've been saying this on the show since 2015 when Donald Trump was still a candidate. Hateful rhetoric oftentimes has violent consequences. And after stoking the flames for years now, we're seeing the impact that Donald Trump is having on the country. So when our hate monger in chief headed to Pittsburgh to make a speech and pay respect to the victims of the synagogue attack, he was met by thousands of protesters with signs like this that read, quote, "President Trump, you are not welcome in Pittsburgh until you commit yourself to compassionate, democratic policies that recognize the dignity of us all." And there were also similar signs that said he's not welcome until he stops his assault on immigrants and refugees and fully denounces white supremacy. And the people who protested him managed to do something really powerful that personally touched me. They got him to turn his motorcade around. They blocked him, and he was forced to head in the opposite direction in what I think was one of the most inspiring acts of solidarity we've seen in this country since Donald Trump became president. And it was just wonderful to watch. So I want to play a clip from CNN that talks about these protests because I really think that we're witnessing history here, and we're going to see this written about in history books. So I really want us to absorb what's happening in this country right now. So take a look.
We're less than a block away here, Wolf. This is the protest. There are several thousand people in this protest. Now, it was one protest, then two, and then we got to this area. You can hear those sirens. That is the president now leaving this area. Protesters have been completely peaceful, but there are several different groups represented here. I'm going to show you, just Eddie, if you just turn around here. This area, that direction is where the synagogue is. All of those sirens you can hear are the commotion that law enforcement are making as the president is trying to leave. It has been completely peaceful, and at this point, it appears that they are actually trying to move these protesters out, which is going to be extraordinarily difficult if they expect to bring the president in this direction. They're trying to back people up. We have seen little more than tears in this neighborhood today, and it has turned into anger as the day has moved on, as people realize that the president is coming. This protest wasn't planned at all 24 hours ago, and in the last 24 hours, it has exploded. We weren't sure how many people were going to show up here. There were very few people who had actually signed up to come, and now there are thousands of people in Squirrel here. Look over here, Eddie. There's somebody somebody's being arrested here. There was a large knot of people who moved toward the synagogue, which is about a block away, and were trying to get through the police cordon. You can see the police cars now trying to move the crowd back. The crowd itself, they are chanting, "Turn your backs."
Hey, Miguel, hold on for a second, Miguel. I want our viewers to hear what they are chanting right now. Let's listen in briefly.
Satisfaction of knowing that they're upset with him, but there is great anger and upset in this area today. And let's just listen to a little of this commotion here. So it appeared to me that the president actually moved off in a different direction, and this was an ancillary unit that was moving down this way. But just thousands of people in Squirrel Hill registering their upset and concern with the president being here, feeling that it just brings the wrong message. Wolf?
So the reporter said they feel that Trump being there gives the wrong message. And that's exactly it. If you think you can show up to Pittsburgh in order to pay lip service to the victims of this violent white supremacist attack, this anti-Semitic, disgusting attack, after you've been fanning the flames of hate for years in this country, no, you don't get to do that, Donald Trump. You don't get to exploit these deaths in order to use it as a photo op to make yourself look better after you've used hateful rhetoric as a political tool to get yourself elected, to gin up support and throw red meat to your base. You can't have it both ways. Either you unequivocally condemn violence and white supremacy and anti-Semitism and stop targeting marginalized communities, or you can keep talking the way you do, but you have to hide your face when the dangerous consequences of your rhetoric materializes.
Yesterday's visit to Pittsburgh was about coming together as a nation to comfort and to heal. After this day of unity and togetherness, I came home and sadly turned on the news and watched as the far-left media once again used tragedy to sow anger and division.
I mean, last week was it was such an awful week, right? And I often don't talk about something unless I feel as if my commentary supplements the story, like I'm adding something meaningful to the conversation. And at this point, the rate to which violence occurs in this country, I'm fucking exhausted. I'm tired. We're all feeling it. It's beating us down. And I don't know what to say anymore. What do you say when every single week in this country there's a new marginalized community under attack? I mean, last week it was transgender Americans, when Trump's administration was essentially trying to define them out of existence, when the Justice Department said that businesses can fire individuals if they're trans, and then we have Trump claiming that immigrants in the caravan coming from Central America, they're criminals, they're young, strong men, and then we have bombs being sent by a right-wing terrorist. We have mass shootings occurring on what seems like a weekly basis, hate crimes being committed, police brutality against people of color. And then this last weekend, we have Jewish Americans being killed at a synagogue. I mean, this is demoralizing. And I feel like it's so hard to formulate the right words to comfort communities that are vulnerable, because what can you say to them when their lives are at stake, when they're vulnerable, when their human dignity is being denied on a daily basis? And I don't have the right words, but I really want to share an article that a viewer of mine sent in, who is a Jewish American, that really felt as if solidarity right now is meaningful in and of itself. So this is an article from The Nation by Phyllis Bennis and Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II, and I really feel as if their words are healing, and we need to hear them right now. So it's a really short article, so I'm going to read the whole thing. They state, "Let's be clear. The attack in Pittsburgh is what real anti-Semitism looks like, with all its horror, fear, and deadly violence. This is the anti-Semitism that has historically fueled right-wing and fascist movements that have targeted vulnerable communities in countries around the world and in eras going back hundreds of years. And let's be clear, this is what happens when a country's leaders, especially its president, call for, defend, encourage, and protect those who threaten and commit acts of violence against Jews, Muslims, African Americans, immigrants, LGBTQ people, women, or the best-known opponents of the president. This is what happens when a president makes false claims, blithely admitting there is no evidence that desperate Central American asylum seekers looking for safety in the United States somehow include terrorists, including unnamed, quote, Middle Easterners. We cannot separate those White House claims from the gunman's social media rage aimed at the historically Jewish refugee support organization HIAS, which plays a vital role in defending asylum seekers, saying just a few hours before his shooting rampage, HIAS looks to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics, I'm going in. This is the kind of attack. No, these are the kinds of attack that call for the strongest, most powerful, most unequivocal unity of all those who face racist, anti-Semitic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic violence, a unity to bring down the forces of white supremacy and hate. That means we have to mobilize, organize, and vote as never before. We must vote against policy violence and physical violence. We must vote against gun violence and the proliferation of guns. We stand against any politician's words that demean and diminish the humanity of whomever they deem blame the other, because in doing so, they legitimize more violence. More than half a century ago, when 4 young girls were killed in a Birmingham church by a racist's bomb, Dr. King told us that those little girls have something to say to every politician who has fed his constituents with the stale bread of hatred and the spoiled meat of racism. They say to us that we must be concerned not merely about who murdered them, but about the system, the way of life, the philosophy which produced the murderer. We stand with the victims of the synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh. We stand with the African American victims of the Kroger shooting in Kentucky last week. We stand with the victims of the white supremacist shooting at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, with the victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting and beyond. We stand with the victims of every white supremacist and racist and anti-Semitic assault back through history, and we stand as one with the communities who have come together to fight back and reclaim our unity, our lives, and our humanity every time. We stand together. And that really is the perfect words. And I was touched when I read that. It brought tears to my eyes, because this is really all that we can do. I mean, when you see tragedies occur on a weekly basis and it just beats you down, all we have is each other. And if we come together and say, we're condemning this, we stand together in solidarity, everyone, there's something inherently comforting about that I think is worthwhile, in hearing. So I wanted to share that with you because it made me feel a little bit better. Or not necessarily made me feel better. It was what we needed to hear, rather. It's what I felt as if, I needed to hear, and what everyone else needed to hear. So thank you so much to my viewer Gail for sharing that article with me. At times like this, we have to lean on each other, because that's all that we got. It's to see atrocities being committed in our own country, against our own people, against our own communities. It hurts. And we have to come together at times like this. Because when we feel demoralized and you feel like, it's really difficult and you don't have the right words, lean on each other. That's all I can say about this. And, I'll end on that note.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.